What if the harshest judge you've ever known lives inside your own mind? And what if the way out isn't to fight that voice, but to listen with compassion, to return with kindness? This is not a path of becoming better. It's a path of remembering you were never broken. Join us as we follow the Dharma's gentle river, from self-judgment to self-kindness. Welcome to Trandy Wisdom, where every breath brings you home. 1. The inner critic. Listening with mindfulness. There is a quiet voice that lives within us, a voice that speaks not from the heart of compassion, but from the shadow of comparison, perfection, and shame. This voice, though invisible, can cut deeply. It is the voice that says, "You're not enough. You failed again." Or, "Why can't you just be better?" It whispers in the silence of the night and grows loud when we are most vulnerable. It is the voice of self-judgment, the inner critic. Many of us have grown so accustomed to this voice that we mistake it for our true self. We believe its harsh words are the truth. We let it define who we are and what we are capable of becoming. And yet, in the light of mindfulness, this voice is not who we are. It is a formation, a habit energy, born from the seeds of fear, conditioning, and suffering. In Buddhist psychology, we speak of vasana, habit energies that are deeply rooted in the store consciousness. These seeds are planted from our childhood, from the words of a critical parent, the pressure of school, the weight of culture, or the echoes of a past wound. With each repetition, the voice becomes stronger, more believable, and so we begin to live our lives not as we are, but as our inner judge tells us we should be. But who is judging? Is it truly you? Mindfulness invites us to pause, breathe, and recognize the inner critic not as an enemy, but as a wounded part of ourselves calling for attention. It is not by silencing or battling this voice that we find peace, but by listening with the ears of understanding. The first step on the path from self-judgment to self-kindness is to simply recognize what is happening in the present moment, without resistance or judgment. When you hear the critic arise in your mind, take a deep, gentle breath. Become aware of the tone it uses, the feelings it stirs, and the places in your body where tension accumulates. Perhaps your chest tightens, perhaps your shoulders lift, maybe your stomach knots, or your breath shortens. These are not just signs of stress. They are calls to come home. The Buddha taught, "This is not me. This is not mine. This is not myself." When we hear the inner critic, we can repeat these words with the energy of a soft bell. We can look at the thought like a cloud drifting across the sky, without clinging, without pushing it away. It comes, it goes. We bow to it, and we let it pass. To judge oneself harshly is to stand outside of oneself, measuring, punishing, withholding warmth. But to return with mindfulness is to step into your own body again, into the present moment, and to say, "I see you, dear one. I am here with you." There is no need to suppress the voice. It has a story to tell. It was born to protect. In a time when we were small and afraid, the critic may have been a way to seek control, to gain approval, to avoid harm. In the past, it may have been necessary, but today, we can offer it a new home, not as a ruler, but as a guest who is tired of shouting. When you sit in meditation, do not push away your thoughts of self-judgment. Instead, recognize them as visitors. Say to them softly, "I see you." Invite them to sit beside your breath. Smile to them. They may soften, simply by being acknowledged. The practice of mindful listening is not only for the outside world. It begins within. We are often taught to be kind to others, but rarely are we taught to listen kindly to our own suffering. Yet, it is only when we listen deeply to our own pain that we can truly understand the pain of another. Try this. The next time you hear the voice saying, "I'm not good enough," do not reply with arguments or affirmations. Instead, place your hand gently on your heart. Breathe slowly, in and out. Inhale, and say silently, "I am here." Exhale, and say, "I understand." Allow the breath to carry compassion to the place that hurts. The inner critic is not a monster to be slain. It is a child to be held. The Zen way is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. And to be real is to be whole, with fear, with tenderness, with joy, with uncertainty. The path of Dharma does not promise a life without struggle. It offers us the tools to walk through that struggle with awareness, dignity, and love. Sometimes, when the inner critic speaks, it brings with it shame. Shame is a heavy coat we put on without knowing. It keeps us hidden from the sun. But mindfulness gently invites us to remove this coat, to feel the warmth of the present moment on our skin again. There is nothing we need to earn to be worthy of this sunlight. We are already enough, simply because we are. Each breath is a bridge back to ourselves. Each mindful step is a return to the ground of being. And when we return home, the critic grows quiet, not because we've silenced it, but because it is no longer alone. You may walk in the forest and hear the wind rustling through the trees. Some leaves fall, some branches creak, but you do not condemn the forest for being imperfect. You admire its wildness, its wholeness, its natural way. Can you begin to see yourself like this? Not a project to be perfected, but a living, breathing forest of experience, deserving of respect and care. You are not the voice that criticizes. You are the presence that hears. You are not the thought that wounds. You are the awareness that embraces. When we look at ourselves through the eyes of mindfulness, we see not flaws, but formations, not sins, but seeds. And each seed, when touched with kindness, can bloom into a flower of peace. In the tradition of Plum Village, we say, "Amoth, I have arrived. I am home." This is not a destination. It is a decision, a choice to stop running from ourselves, to sit beside the pain, to breathe with it, to listen deeply, and to stay. Only when we stay with ourselves, gently and faithfully, does the journey from judgment to kindness truly begin. And in that stillness, where breath and awareness meet, the voice of the inner critic softens. The river of Dharma begins to flow, and we remember, there is nothing wrong with us. There never was. Just a child within, waiting to be heard. Just a heart, waiting to be held. Just a moment, waiting to be met with love. 2. Embracing the wounded self. Compassion as the path. To love ourselves is not to indulge the ego, but to bow deeply to the truth of our own suffering. There is a place inside each of us where something has been left unattended, a part of us that cried out long ago, but no one came, a place that still trembles at the thought of being left behind, of being unworthy, of not being enough. This wounded self does not seek pity. It seeks presence. It does not want to be fixed. It wants to be felt. In the light of mindfulness, we begin to recognize this wounded self, not as a mistake, not as weakness, but as the very gateway to compassion. It is through this wounded self that we touch the Dharma most deeply, not in the moments of perfection, but in the tender moments of falling apart and choosing to stay. To embrace the wounded self is not to drown in sorrow or glorify our pain. It is to look directly into the eyes of our suffering and say with calm breath, "You are real. You belong. I will not turn away from you." Most of us have been trained to turn away from childhood. We were taught that pain should be hidden, tears should be swallowed, and strength means never breaking. But the Buddha never asked us to be invincible. He asked us to be awake, and to awaken is to see all things as they are, even the parts of ourselves we have disowned. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a great emphasis on the four immeasurables: loving kindness, metta; compassion, karuna; joy, mudita; and equanimity, upekkha. Among these, compassion is the response that naturally arises when we touch suffering with understanding. It is not sentimental. It is not soft, in the way the world often imagines. It is the strength to stay. True compassion begins with ourselves, not because we are more important, but because we are often the ones we have forgotten to include. We are often the last to receive the love we offer so easily to others. To practice compassion is to stop running. It is to stop fixing. It is to sit with the ache in our chest, the knot in our stomach, the weight in our shoulders, and to breathe with it, slowly, gently, without agenda. In the tradition of Plum Village, we are invited to practice holding the inner child. This is not a metaphor. It is a real and living practice. Somewhere in the depths of our consciousness is the younger self, perhaps 5 years old, perhaps 15, still waiting to be acknowledged, still waiting for a gentle hand on the back, a kind word, a breath of belonging. You can visualize this inner child. You can give them a name. You can speak to them softly, as you would to a frightened friend. When they cry out in fear or shame or despair, do not tell them to be quiet. Do not tell them they are overreacting. Instead, breathe in and say, "Dear one, I am here for you." Breathe out and say, "You are safe with me." Each breath is an embrace. Each moment of mindfulness is an act of reconciliation. Sometimes, we carry wounds that are decades old, left unhealed because we believed we needed to be strong, because no one taught us how to tend to them. But the Dharma teaches that nothing is permanent, not even pain, and the healing begins when we bring compassion to what hurts, without judgment, without pushing it away. There is no need to analyze every scar, no need to relive every memory. The practice is not about intellectual understanding. It is about presence. The wounded self does not need a solution. It needs a witness. You can sit quietly and place your hand over your heart. Feel the warmth. Feel the rise and fall of the breath. You can whisper to yourself, "I see the suffering in me. I will not abandon myself." Even if your voice trembles, even if the tears come, especially then, because those are the sacred waters that nourish healing. The practice of compassion is also the practice of deep listening, not just listening to others, but listening to our own inner voice, not the critic, but the voice beneath it, the soft whisper that says, "I wish someone would understand me." That voice is not weak. It is real. It is the voice of life trying to heal. We can write letters to our wounded self, not to explain or justify, but to speak from the heart. Begin with, "Dear little one, I know you have suffered," and let the words come as they wish. Let the tears come if they must. Let the silence between the words be part of the message. Sometimes it is the silence that says the most. To embrace the wounded self is to become whole again, not because we are fixing anything, but because we are no longer at war with any part of who we are. The Buddha once said, "Hatred is never appeased by hatred. It is only appeased by love." This is an eternal truth. We can apply this not only to others, but to ourselves. Judgment will never dissolve self-judgment. Only love can. This is why the path of compassion is also the path of nonviolence toward ourselves. Each time we speak kindly to the hurting parts of us, we are practicing ahimsa, non-harming. Each time we say, "I am enough," we are watering the seed of peace. In daily life, we can make this practice part of our rhythm. When we brush our teeth, we can say, I care for this body with love. When we walk, we can feel each step as a grounding in self-respect. When we make mistakes, we can pause, breathe, and say, I forgive myself. See, I am learning. The goal is not to erase the wound. The wound may always be there, but it no longer defines us. It becomes part of our depth, our understanding, our ability to connect with others who suffer. It becomes the root of our compassion. In the monastic tradition, we sometimes touch the earth with our forehead, a gesture of humility, of surrender, of returning to our true home. We can do the same with our inner pain. We can bow to it and say, thank you for teaching me tenderness. This is not romanticizing suffering. This is transforming it. A lotus only blooms in the mud, and the wound itself, held in mindfulness, becomes the fertile ground where the flower of awakening grows. In time, you may find that the parts of yourself you once rejected have become the most beautiful. They are no longer sources of shame. They are sources of strength. They are bridges of empathy. They are the places where your humanity and your Buddha nature meet. You are not broken. You are becoming whole through love, and in loving yourself, you open the gate for others to do the same. This is the gift of compassion, not only for healing, but for awakening. 3. Self-kindness. In daily practice, watering the seed of wholeness. There is no need to wait for perfect conditions to begin again. The way of transformation does not begin with grand gestures or distant goals. It begins in the small and immediate. It begins in this breath, or in this step, in this moment when you choose not to abandon yourself. This is the quiet revolution of self-kindness. Many people think of kindness as something we give outwardly, to friends, to family, to those in need. We learn to say please, to offer help, to listen when someone cries. Yet how often do we extend the same tenderness to our own suffering? How often do we say, it's okay, my dear, I know this hurts, I am here with you. We may wake up in the morning and already begin judging ourselves. We may call ourselves lazy before we've stood up from bed. We may call ourselves behind before we've taken the first step. These are not neutral thoughts. They are sharp edges against the heart. And yet, they are so familiar that we do not even notice them cutting. The Dharma invites us to notice, not to judge our judgments, but to bring awareness to them, to create space between the thought and the reaction. In that space, there is freedom, and in that freedom, we can choose kindness. One of the most powerful practices we can undertake is to treat ourselves as someone we deeply care for. This does not mean indulgence. It means mindfulness. It means care that is rooted in presence, not ego. When we practice kindness toward ourselves, we are not feeding our pride. We are feeding our wholeness. The seed of self-kindness already exists in each of us. It may have been buried, overlooked, or doubted, but it is there. Every time we offer ourselves gentleness instead of criticism, we water that seed. Every time we breathe with our pain instead of pushing it away, we encourage it to grow. There is a way of walking that is not hurried, not striving, not distracted. It is a walking of awareness. You can take a step and say silently, I have arrived. Another step, I am home. With each step, you are affirming your presence. You are reminding yourself that you do not need to be elsewhere or someone else to be whole. Wholeness is not perfection. It is inclusion. It is the capacity to embrace joy and sorrow, strength and weakness, clarity and confusion, without needing to divide or reject. Wholeness means we are no longer split against ourselves. In daily life, we can practice this by creating small rituals of kindness. When we wash our hands, we can smile and say, I care for myself. When we eat, we can chew slowly, with gratitude. not just for the food, but for the body that receives it. When we make a mistake, instead of tightening and blaming, we can breathe and say, "That was hard. I am still learning." These are not mantras to escape reality. They are gentle anchors that keep us rooted in compassion. The mind may resist at first. It may say, "This is silly," or "You don't deserve that kindness." But we do not need to argue. We only need to persist with patience. Self-kindness is like sunlight. Even a small ray, when offered consistently, can bring warmth to a cold space. If you practice every day, just a little, just sincerely, you will begin to feel that warmth from within. When you sit in meditation, you can place your hand over your heart and breathe with it. Feel the rhythm of life beneath your palm. Say to yourself, "This is my home. I will take care of it." There is no need to say more. The sincerity of your touch is enough. Sometimes, when we feel overwhelmed, the mind spins stories. It says, "I will never get through this," or "I am not strong enough." In these moments, kindness is not a solution. It is a companion. It walks with us, not to fix, but to witness. You can say, "I don't know how this will unfold, but I will stay with myself." We can also create loving notes to ourselves, a small message on the mirror that says, "You are doing your best." A gentle reminder on the phone that says, "Pause, breathe, return." These are not acts of vanity. They are acts of remembrance. We are reminding ourselves of something sacred, that we are not machines, that we are human beings, tender and deserving of care. There are days when we forget, days when the old voice of the inner critic becomes loud again, when we feel like falling back into patterns of blame or avoidance. This, too, is part of the path. The practice is not about being perfect. It is about returning. Each time you notice you have wandered, and you gently come back, you are practicing self-kindness. If you find yourself in sorrow, do not hurry through it. Sit beside it, as you would sit beside a friend. Breathe with it. Ask, "What do you need, my dear?" And then listen. Perhaps you need rest. Perhaps you need silence. Perhaps you need the soft touch of your own attention. The Buddha said, "You yourself, as much as anyone in the universe, deserve your love and affection." This is not a sentiment. It is a teaching, and if we live it fully, it transforms everything. In the monastery, we bow to one another as a sign of respect, but we also bow to ourselves, not out of arrogance, but out of recognition. We bow to the Buddha within. Each time you offer yourself kindness, you are bowing inward. You are acknowledging that you, too, are a sacred expression of life. Self-kindness does not separate us from others. It connects us more deeply. When we know how to care for our own suffering, we are less likely to judge the suffering of others. We see our shared vulnerability. We see our shared hope. Try, for one day, to move gently through your life. Speak to yourself as if you were someone precious. Respond to your pain as you would to a child. Sit down to eat, not as a task, but as a ceremony of nourishment. Lay your head to rest with gratitude, not regret. This is not fantasy. This is mindfulness in action. Over time, you will begin to trust yourself more. You will see that kindness is not weakness. It is the strength to stay when things are difficult. It is the courage to believe that even the parts of you that tremble deserve love. Self-kindness is a practice of remembering that the Dharma is not something we apply to others. It begins with us. And when we walk the path with gentle steps, when we speak with kind words, when we treat ourselves with care, the Dharma becomes alive in our every breath. You do not need to become someone else to be worthy. You only need to return to yourself. again and again, with compassion, and when you do, you will feel it, not as a concept, but as a living truth, that you are already whole. 4. The Dharma River, returning home to understanding and love. There is a river that flows in each of us. It began long before we were born, and it will continue after we are gone. This river is not made of water, but of understanding. It is not cold. It is alive with the warmth of compassion. It does not carve through earth, but through layers of forgetting. The Dharma is this river, and it has always been flowing, gently, patiently, inviting us to come home. To return home is not to arrive at a destination. It is to remember. The Dharma is not a doctrine to be learned, nor a system to be achieved. It is a way of being, a way of touching life with the eyes of non-discrimination, with the hands of tenderness, with the breath of presence. When we have wandered far from ourselves, when we have drowned in voices of judgment and doubt, the Dharma does not punish. It waits. It flows in silence, offering us a path of return. Sometimes we imagine that spiritual practice requires something dramatic. A retreat in the mountains, a vow of silence, a perfect calm. But the river does not ask us to be extraordinary. It only asks us to be real. It is in washing a cup with mindfulness that we see the truth of interbeing. It is in pausing before we react that we rediscover the ground of compassion. Each ordinary act becomes sacred when we bring our whole presence to it. The Dharma river does not demand that we erase our suffering. It asks that we cradle it in our arms, as we would hold a crying child. The child does not need us to solve everything. She needs us to stay. And when we stay, fully, with open eyes and a soft heart, something begins to shift, not in the world, but in the way we hold the world. This is understanding. This is love. There are many who feel they are not worthy of love because they have made mistakes, because they have failed, because they carry the weight of regrets. But the Dharma teaches that love is not a reward. It is not something we earn when we have proven ourselves. Love is our true nature. It is the fruit of understanding. And understanding is born from presence. When we understand ourselves, not in the mind, but in the breath, in the heartbeat, in the trembling, we begin to see that there was never anything wrong with us. We were simply caught in a storm. And now, through the practice of mindfulness and compassion, we are learning to sit with the storm, not to fight it, not to flee it, but to listen. As the Buddha listened to the wounded world beneath the Bodhi tree, we learn to listen to the wounded world within us. You may sit quietly and feel the current of the Dharma moving through your body. It is not a concept. It is the way your chest rises and falls, the way your hands rest without striving, the way your thoughts soften when you remember to breathe. This is not something to attain. It is something to notice. The inner critic may still visit. The old wounds may still whisper, but they are no longer the only voices. The Dharma speaks too. Though it speaks without words, it speaks through spaciousness, through stillness, through a kindness that has no agenda. To return to the Dharma river is to return to balance. You do not need to swing from extreme striving to complete withdrawal. You can flow like water, steady, responsive, unhindered. When water meets a rock, it does not become angry. It does not stop. It simply flows around, or over, or through. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. There is a teaching in the Lotus Sutra about the rain of the Dharma, falling equally on all plants. The tall trees receive it. The short grasses receive it. None are excluded. Each absorbs what it can. In the same way, the Dharma touches all beings. Some may grow quickly, others slowly. But the rain is the same. The compassion is the same. The invitation to awaken is always here. We may wonder, What does it mean to love ourselves? Does it mean to agree with everything we've done? No. To love ourselves is not to pretend we have never caused harm. It is to hold our imperfection with honesty and care, to bow to our suffering without adding more suffering through shame, to say, I see where I have hurt, and I choose to heal. This kind of love is not a feeling. It is a decision, a practice, a path. It is how we show up when no one is watching, how we breathe through the moments of tightness, of confusion, of sadness, how we choose to speak to ourselves when we fall short of who we hope to be. The Dharma does not promise that we will never suffer again, but it offers us a way to suffer that leads to understanding. It gives us the tools to suffer well, to suffer without closing our hearts, to suffer with the awareness that even this pain can teach us how to love more deeply. When we walk mindfully, we are not just walking on earth, we are walking in the Dharma river. Each step is an act of remembrance. I am alive. I belong. I do not need to become someone else. I only need to be here. Sometimes, when I walk in nature, I imagine the Dharma as a quiet current beneath my feet. The trees breathe. The clouds pass without resistance. The stones sit without complaint. Nothing hurries. Nothing hides. In that space, I remember that I, too, can be like the river, carrying wounds, carrying dreams, but never stopping the flow of life. If you feel lost, do not rush to be found. Sit by the river. Listen. Let the sound of water remind you of your own fluidity, your ability to change, to soften, to begin again. Let go of the need to be whole. You already are. Let go of the idea that awakening is somewhere far away. It is here, in the touch of your own hand on your chest, in the whisper of your breath when you say, I forgive you. The Buddha said, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. But in mindfulness, we learn that we aren't just what we think. We are what we are aware of. And awareness is boundless. It can hold all things. This is the river of Dharma. It does not carry you away. It carries you back, back to yourself, back to the knowing that you are not broken. You are not alone. And you are not too late. You are already home. Every step taken in mindfulness is a step toward that home. Every breath taken in compassion is a bell ringing in the heart. Every time you choose to stay, rather than run, you deepen your roots in the Dharma. And in time, you will see that the river you were searching for was never outside of you. It has always been here, beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the masks you thought you had to wear. The Dharma river is your true nature, and when you live from it, you love from it. To understand is to love. To return is to be free. If this journey touched something true in you, take a moment to breathe and gently subscribe to Trandy wisdom, not to follow more noise, but to return again and again to the quiet space where you truly belong.